My name is Ian Mason. I'm Head of Health Research and Innovation, and my job today is Master of Ceremonies. So if anything goes wrong, I will find someone else to blame. Can I just check if we have anybody on video conference? Can anybody?
Yes, we do.
Say hello so that we know that there are people out there.
Hello, Ian.
Okay, well what we'll do is we'll start with the housekeeping. So for those of you who don't know the building, the toilets are outside this door and along the corridor, and the fire exits are, as you see here, at the top and the side, and please follow the green signs down and outside is the muster point. Two other points of to note is, first of all, the presentations are going to be recorded, so please mind your language. Jill?
What are you looking at me?
And also, you'll see there's a photographer at the front here. If anyone has any objections to their photos, please let the photographer know, and make sure that you put your name first class. Okay, so it remains for me to pass on to Professor Gill Hubbard, who's head of School of Health.
For anyone that was at my inaugural lecture, I believe that would be quite good. Good evening, and a warm welcome to Inverness College UHI for these inaugural lectures. First time that we've had two at the same event for Professor Annetta Smith and Professor Gill Hubbard. Now, we're celebrating the award of professorships to two members of one of the newest bits of UHI, which is the Department of Nursing, which transferred across from the University of Stirling's custodianship into UHI in 2017. And the first thing I want to say is that this is very much about celebrating Jill and Annetta, but I do want to acknowledge the huge amount of work that all of the staff in that department do in both research and teaching. And we're very conscious of that in the university. It's really very much leading the way in terms of how we want our academic units to perform. But I'm sure colleagues within the department will not object to the fact that we're going to really focus on celebrating Annetta and Jill today. Professor Smith began her career in 1982 as a staff nurse at the Western Isles Hospital in Stornoway, before taking a teaching post in the Highlands and Western Isles College of Nursing and Midwifery in 1987. And she went on to hold a range of positions at the University of Stirling, including Head of Health Sciences, and led undergraduate and postgraduate nursing programs. She achieved a teaching qualification, formal teaching qualification in 1989, and completed degrees in social sciences and in education, before going on to complete a PhD in 2008. When nursing came to UHI, we appointed Annetta as head of the new Department of Nursing and Midwifery, as it now is, as it's continuing to grow and extend its portfolio into new and critical areas of nurse education and CPD. Annetta is an excellent head of department. She's able to apply her areas of expertise to developing and teaching both undergraduate and postgraduate curriculum. And it's interesting that one of her own specialisms is pain management, and that was one of my specialisms as well in the veterinary field, so it maybe says something about people in senior management roles and the fascinations that they hold. As well as leading the development of a new MSc in advanced nursing practice, Annetta has developed a lab clinical decision maker, which is the first module to run in that programme. And I think it's excellent that one of the newest programmes in the nursing department has already recruited 35 students onto that programme. Annetta, as well as teaching, has developed significant stakeholder engagement over her career. And she's developed a number of mutually beneficial partnerships, both locally and nationally, and internationally, with, for example, NHS, local authorities, schools, third sector agencies, parliamentary members, and the public. And that's not insignificant in terms of advancing the interests of nurse education nationally and advancing the interests of nurse education within UHI. That breadth and depth of stakeholder engagement and confidence building is absolutely critical. And Annetta, with support from colleagues in the department, does an excellent job of that. And Annetta contributes directly, personally, to UK strategic direction and decision making within key fora relating to nurse education. And now that she's doing that for UHI, that helps to raise this university's profile and visibility as a player within health and allied health education and training. Annette also has a significant and sustained publication record, and her major interests in research are focused on building a reputation in nurse education, aspects of service, delivery and improvement, and around sensory impairment. And remote and rural healthcare underpins the context in which many of these studies are framed and conducted. And those publications coming out of that work makes a significant contribution to research excellence and work conditions in the university. So it's a key addition to the overall strength of research across our different discipline areas. And Annetta's research has local, national and international relevance, focused as it is on health service delivery and access, which agendas which are applicable across multiple remote and rural agendas, focus on meeting the needs of older people and an ageing population and those specific specialisms around sensory impairment, but also a publication around the pedagogy of nurse education and the way that nurse education needs to change as service delivery itself evolves in the 21st century. Over the years, Professor Smith has developed very productive collaborations with a number of institutions in India, and in particular with St John's Research Institute in Bangalore and the College of Nursing, Christian Medical College in Willower. And those collaborations, again, strengthen the visibility not just of the department, but of the university on an international stage, and more importantly, they open up opportunities for staff and student mobility and international study. With colleagues in the nursing department, she's received a number of awards relating to nurse education. 2015 finalist for the MAHP Research Award for Pre-Nursing Scholarship Research, an MAHP Research Unit Scotland Best Educational Initiative Award, being Dementia Smart, and Enhanced Practice through Pre-Registration Nurse Education in the Scottish Dementia Award. And we emphasise that again is with colleagues within the department. So that is also helping to lead and support and mentor other researchers coming through within the department. The University of the Highlands and Islands has awarded the title of Professor to Annetta in recognition of her expertise in nursing leadership and related research in health service improvement and delivery and access, and particularly that focus around those areas I mentioned around remote and rural service delivery and sensory impairment. Now, Professor Gill Hubbard, also, as I said, a key member of the Department of Nursing, and she's currently the lead for research within the department, helping to make sure that that research grows. Not only does it transfer safely from the University of Stirling to UHI, but it continues to grow and continues to embrace not just additional staff, but also the student body more widely. Now, Gill's career in health research began as a research fellow in the University of Edinburgh in 1998. before she took up a leadership role as a reader and associate professor at the University of Stirling in 2011. Now, she was also a member from 2006 of the Cancer Care Research Centre at the University of Stirling, and that led to her appointment as its director in 2015. In 2012, Professor Hubbard was made the founding chair of the Lifestyle and Behaviour Change Research Group within the National Cancer Research Institute, and at that point working closely with the Teenage Cancer Trust. You'll see the themes coming out from those key developments and professional development stages in their career just in a minute or two. It's also worth noting that Professor Hubbard took a very different route into the nursing department and into health research. Before embarking on a career as a health researcher, she worked as a secondary school teacher from 1988, and then as a lecturer at Newcastle College before getting a PhD in education at the University of Sunderland. She's the member of an editorial board of 2 international journals and a member of the International Psychosocial Oncology Society Research Committee. And as an international expert, she's also been invited to join the Breast Cancer Now's Research Gap Analysis Working Group and also Bowel Cancer UK's Research Gap Analysis Working Group. She has an excellent track record of generating grants as a primary investigator. And her grant capture predominantly supports research programs in the areas of adolescent health and well-being and recovery and rehabilitation after clinical treatment. And that latter research program is going to play a significant role in the Inverness City Deal Active Health Initiative. So it's going to be a key area of growth for the university, interface between physical activity and well-being and recuperation after clinical treatment, or indeed preventative activity, prevent clinical conditions from becoming worse. Gill's involved in a number of collaborative research programs with colleagues in NHS Highlands and others. And some examples of that: she's involved in a research program about health and well-being of teenagers and young adults with cancer, and teenage cancer awareness in partnership with, in this case, 3 Australian universities. Between 2014 and 2015, she was a member of the Scottish Government Transforming Care After Cancer Treatment Committee, was currently chair of TCAT NHS Highlands Project My Cancer Court. She's working regionally with breast cancer care and NHS Highland and is currently examining common and unique recovery and rehabilitation needs of people with different types of cancer after treatment. And the University of the Highlands and Islands has awarded the title of Professor to Gill Hubbard in recognition of her expertise in leading research nationally and internationally in her key fields of expertise. The title of Professor represents the highest level of academic achievement which can be granted by any UK university. And it's reserved for an individual who is recognised as a leader in their field and has demonstrated excellence in their work. And upon appointment, they're expected to further development this excellence and to maintain and develop their professional competence. And I can clearly say in both cases today that is something that it's not simply something we expect them to do, it's something that we clearly are doing, moving forward all the time. It's been very visible since they joined this university. Being a professor, especially at the University of the Highlands and Islands, represents something unique. It goes beyond traditional management concepts of seniority, because it involves engaging with staff over a very distributed area and a unique partnership model. And it requires vision, leadership by example, and becoming a role model for less experienced staff and students. Again, you clearly see those qualities and activities coming through in those speakers tonight. So in tonight's lecture, Professor Smith will explore how pioneering practice in the Highlands and Islands has helped to shape healthcare delivery across the world. and she will also consider how innovative nursing and midwifery education, research and practice will help us to meet the future needs of the population. Professor Hubbard will discuss how we can help teenagers to make informed choices about their health and well-being. And as a former secondary school teacher, you know that Professor Hubbard has first-hand experience of working to encourage young people to make positive decisions and life choices. So now, probably to your great relief, I'm going to hand over to Annetta, the first speaker.
They are, okay. First of all, thank you very much, Tyson, for that welcome and introduction to myself. And I'm sure Jo will be able to speak for herself. She normally can, but when I was asked about the professorial lecture, and Jill Nicol, no, someone had emailed me saying, send us your abstract. And I thought, professorial lecture, you need to send an abstract about your research. So the research that is probably most live just now is, as all of my colleagues know, is the work that we're doing around sensory impairment. So I wrote an abstract and it just didn't feel right, because I've been given the award of a professor of nursing, and I am a nurse, and I'm very proud of being a nurse. So I've changed what I'm doing. I'm going to take you on a little journey. And this is about nursing and midwifery, Wendy.
Yes.
It's about nursing and midwifery in the Highlands and Islands. I am a nurse, and I've spent most of my career in the Highlands and particularly in the Islands. I just felt the right thing to do. When I started looking at the history of nursing in the Highlands and Islands, it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. The history, how long nursing has been in the Highlands and Islands as a profession, and also what we have contributed to nursing globally. So I'm going to take you on a little trip, but with a health warning. I've basically got 25 minutes, you'll all be glad, to cover 180 years. So the position is not going to be my strong point today, but it's just to give you a flavour of where nursing has come from. And Crichton said that today it's not so much about the department, it's about me and Jill, but when I wrote this, I was thinking it's about the department, it's about where we have come from and where we are going, so I might just correct what you just said. You just rely on something. So the journey begins, oddly enough, in Germany in 1836. Prior to, in the early 1800s, nursing and healing has been around and recorded since biblical times, but the formalization of nursing as a profession has got a shorter history. And if we look at, I need to start somewhere, so I've picked 1836 as my starting point. And in Germany, in 1836, institutions were set up by women who worked outside of the home, and that was really quite unusual and quite revolutionary. And these women, called deaconesses, they set up hospitals, schools and orphanages to care for the sick, the poor, those that couldn't get access to health care, because if you were rich, you got it in your own home. Coincidentally, Florence, who had decided she wanted to be a nurse, visited Kaiserwerth before she went to the Crimea, because she was trying to find a recipe for nursing. And it's quite extraordinary when we think of that now, but there wasn't anything there to tell her what a nurse should be. So she went to Kaiserwerth, spent 3 months there, and then went to the Crimea in 1854, and after the Crimea came back, and as many of us know, and we've learnt when we're training, set up nursing school at St Thomas in 1860. Shortly after, Scotland was never that far behind. Edinburgh Infirmary set up its own training school in 1872. I'm going to leap about a little bit here. So, a lot of what we learnt in what was learnt in Germany was transferred to the UK. And it's just an illustration of this is still happening, that we can't be working in isolation. And the neighbourhood care model is a model of primary care nursing that's been adapted from the Birdsong model of nursing that's been going in the Netherlands for about 10 years, and it's been adapted and applied in the Highlands. And both myself and Michelle Beattie, who's in the audience here, are playing a part in the evaluation of that. So, you know, history keeps repeating itself all the time, and I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to keep drafting that before. The RNI opened in 1804. Incredible. What do you think? About the difference in the timeline between Florence and the RNI, is that incredible how long this was a hospital here. It's 1/6 that was opened in Scotland with a staff that consisted of one nurse, a porter, some GPs, and a nurse's help. The second patient that was admitted to the RNI had typhus, infected the nurse, but who thankfully recovered. That's not 1804, but that's a picture, obviously, of the RNI. Great Domain opened in 1864. And there is a long history of hospitals, infectious disease units, sanatoriums, maternity hospitals, poorhouses, and mental health institutions open throughout the Highlands. And if you're really interested in this, and it's great history, James Leslie and Ian Leslie, that many of us know, have written a book about the history of Highland hospitals, and it is really well worth a read. In the Western Isles, similarly, we had hospitals opened, and the first Lewis Hospital opened in 1896 with 6 beds. The county hospital, the sanatorium, was opened in the early 1900s. There's a picture of it here. And you know, a lot of us know or have had families who have contracted TB, and a little bit of a personal story. I had an aunt, and her name was Annetta, and she contracted TB in 1944. She was only 15. And my aunt, her sister, described TB as a pencil tip on each lung. So she spent 3 years in the sanatorium, and it was evident then that she wasn't going to live, so they wanted to take her home. And my grandparents, they bought a hut from the airport that cost them £15. It had been left over from the war. And they took the hut home, and it was situated beside my grandparents' house. In fact, my uncle was my uncle's loom shed. Remember that? And my aunt got home, and she was there for 2 weeks before she died. And of course, not long after, we had access to streptomycin, and that would have stopped so many people dying. But you know, I was speaking to my own aunt about this at the weekend, and she was talking about the street where she lived. Every single family was affected by TB. So there's a great bit of research that is ripe for next year there. In terms of the funding for the hospitals, I came across this at the Storm Historical Society. I was taken about in their archives, and in terms of the funding for the hospitals, it was no NHS. So most of the funding was raised locally or by benefactors, many of whom had immigrated and were sending money back. But that was 1938. 1939. They were still trying to raise money to keep the hospital in Stirling. I'm going to jump about a bit. Another bit of archive as well. When I was looking through the county archives, I came across this advert, and the advert was an appeal to the young women of Lewis to come and work in the county, because on account of the shortage of nurses, the hospital is unable to accept many natives of Lewis and who are in urgent need of treatment and so on. And what's very interesting about it is the hospital couldn't even afford to place the advert themselves, and it was inserted by Messrs. J. Mackenzie Limited, so it was a company in Stirling that paid for the advert. But I think if we dug around right throughout the Highlands and Islands, we would find the situation was quite similar. I'll move on quickly. Nurse training. The nursing home in St Thomas started in 1860, and in 1870s, 10 years later, there was nurse training in the RNI. It's incredible, isn't it? The history of nursing in the Highlands and Islands has gone on for 150, 160 years. By 1890, there was a 3-year probationary program, and student nurses were called probationers. And sometimes, I still hear student nurses being called probationers. And it's a hangover from that time. Around 1891, the first certified nurse was working in Lewis. And she was supported by a lady called the Bible Woman, who was responsible for looking after the poor in the community. So you had one nurse, one Bible Woman for the whole of the island. But by 1897, nurse training began in the Lewis Hospital, so not long after the RNI. And the annual report from that time stated that by arrangement with Stirling Parish Council, a Lewis woman is now under training at the hospital so that she may, on completion of her training, take up duties in any parish of Lewis to which the parish council may allocate her. So they had to go where they were sent on placement, basically. There's a very long history of district nursing and Queen's nursing in the Highlands and Islands as well, and there's so much history around community nursing because community nurses provided the bulk of the nursing, because surprise, surprise, most people were looked after at home. Lots of parallels there. If you want to read about this again, one of my former colleagues who may be listening in, so I'm a bit nervous, Catherine Morrison, has written an excellent book about the history of district nursing, and Queen's nursing in particular, called Hebridean Highlands, and it's an excellent read as I've been advocating to my colleagues. So we fast forward to 1913 and the development of the Highlands and Islands Medical Service. Now, most of you know, especially if you're from the Highlands and Islands, that this is seen as a precursor to the NHS, and it provided access to medical care, particularly GP and district nursing care, to the community throughout the Highlands and Islands where there was no access. And records show that about 300,000 people have access to medical care that wouldn't have otherwise. And like today, it was reported that both the doctor and nurse together, working together, provided services to the population that was superior according to this report. I'm going to digress just a little. There was a lady from Kentucky who was a nurse called Mary Beckenridge. And I don't know if any of you have heard of Mary Beckenridge. No? Her history is quite well documented. She was a nurse and she was living in Kentucky in the Appalachians, in quite an isolated area. And she had lost 2 children because she was unable to access medical services. And she came to the Highlands and Islands, and she worked with the Queen's nurses and followed them round particularly around the Hebrides, but also down in Oban and Argyll. And on her return, she built a frontier nursing service in Kentucky based on what she saw with the Highlands and Islands Medical Service. So what she saw had a huge influence on what she did when she went back to the States. But as life goes, what goes round comes round, so I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit. So the Frontier School of Midwifery and Family Nursing that Mary set up has been very forward-thinking. And they developed the family health nurse. They had a family health nurse running from 1970 to 1990, and in 1999 they still have a programme running. In Scotland, the Highlands and Islands were part of the Family Health Nurse World Health Organization pilot, which again focused on working with families in the community. So you're starting to see there's a theme and a thread running through. So we gave something to Kentucky, Kentucky gave something back to us. And of course, 70 years ago, we had the birth of the NHS. I think everyone's probably aware of the principles of the NHS in terms of all the treatments people have access to. Arguably, the expectation of NHS treatment is causing us some challenges now. I'm going to fast forward to the development of Raigmore. And Raigmore was built on its original site in 1941. It was a temporary hospital that was part of the Raigmore housing estate, and it was one of 7 emergency hospital facilities that were set up during the war with the expectation that they would have to deal with quite a lot of civilian casualties. And as you know, Raigmore has been on that site now for some time and has undergone and continues to undergo significant developments. And there we have the new Western Isles Hospital that was built in 1992. Now I know there are other hospitals around the Highlands and Islands, but in terms of focusing nurse education, these have tended to be where the programs have been run out of. When I was going through the archive, Isabel's not here, but when I was going through the archives and speaking to people in Lewis, I was being told of a pre-entry nursing class that was being run in 1957. So school pupils from the class got training in nursing, and then they went up to the Lewis Hospital where the sister tutors taught them a little bit about nursing before coming in. So of course we thought we were being clever for that programme in 2012, but someone had beat us to it. In actual fact, you'll find that most people have beat us to most things in the past. In 1946, Raigmore established a general training school, and I suspect there would have been some parents or people in the audience who trained here, alright? And that was the lovely entrance to the Highlands and Islands College of Nursing and Midwifery. That was open from 1970 to 1976. Some of us were taught there. Some of us taught there. And I was one of the ones that taught there. There I am. That's one of my first classes. And this is the truth. This was us a week last Saturday. And I'm glad to say that the Royal Nurses, working in Glasgow, working in the Highlands, up in Thurso, working in Lewis, so you've got Isabel there, who does all the work around Lyme disease, doing absolutely fantastic work. We got very excited when we all went up. There has been lots of developments since the Highlands and Islands College of Nursing and Midwifery. As Crichton said, we were part of the University of Stirling from 1996 to 2017, and that provided such an important foundation for nursing and midwifery education in the Highlands and Islands, and that should never be underestimated and made us as a department very much what we are. But we will grow and develop. And we started off as a department of nursing last year. We'll be the department of nursing next year. And the future for us as a department is looking bright. We have great students. So there's you and Katrina there who happily code for these photos. Came across this photo of nurses outside the RNI. The RNI, the Royal Northern Infirmary, which used to be the hospital, is now occupied by the University of the Highlands and Islands, the executive office of the UHI. So it looks pretty much the same. So there's our 2020 graduates who is, again, things coming full circle, isn't it? It'd be great to see nurses having a photo taken outside that building when they graduate. I haven't mentioned midwifery much, but there is a long history of midwifery education in the Highlands. And unfortunately, in 2013, we saw what we thought was the final cohort of midwifery students in Wales, and it was a very sad time. But happier times are ahead, and we anticipate that we will have our first new cohort of midwives coming in next January, and that'll be an incredible achievement, and again, just so important for healthcare delivery in the Highlands and Islands. We've got an MSc in Advanced Nursing that Crichton mentioned, and has been very successful in terms of taking in students. Again, what's interesting about this is that advanced nursing prepares nurses for an advanced level of practice, something new, according to the Scottish Government. This is an extract from John MacLeod. Some of you will know who he is. He is a bit of a character. He was a GP in Newest, and his father was a GP before him. And this is his father's description of what a nurse in Newest was doing. So much the same that an advanced nurse practitioner is doing now. Maybe even more, I would suggest. I'm going to leave Jill to talk about the research, but as well as our students and our programs, we have our research, and the department research is varied and excellent. And finally, I'm just about finished. Thinking about the future, what I decided to do was I've asked people that I know and people that I don't know what their thoughts of the key challenges and opportunities that face nursing in the future. And I've had feedback from very eminent professors, from students in different places around the world, including our own student nurses. And I did a scientific word cloud, as you can see, to analyse the information that's coming back. What's apparent is that when we look back 160 years ago, we're not dealing with infectious diseases, thank goodness, okay, and with some of the other problems that we're dealing with then. So different challenges, but some things are also the same. Okay. We still have health disparities. We still have to try and look after people. We still have challenges around recruitment and retention of the workforce. So there are differences, but there's a lot of similarities. Looking at the key opportunities, it was actually quite difficult to pick out, when I did this yesterday, what the key opportunities were. So what I decided to do was look for key themes in some of the statements. And something that came across quite clearly from professors and from student nurses as well was that the need for nursing to have a global impact and the need for nursing as a profession to look outward. And I think hiding these who's the director of nursing here, statement at the bottom really sums everything up beautifully, and when I was reading it I thought, I wish I had made that up. But credit where credit is due. So that was a bit of a jaunt through nursing, but I think what I'm trying to illustrate is that we're a new department. We started, as Clayton said, and we know in 2017 that the history of nursing in the Highlands and Islands goes back way beyond that, and we have contributed so much to healthcare delivery in the Highlands and Islands and beyond. And our aspiration as a department, and my aspiration as head of department to support staff, is that we will carry on doing that. So that's my key message. As a nurse, I think we have, as nurses, a huge amount to contribute, and nurses have contributed a massive amount to healthcare. So I've got a couple of acknowledgements. I had so much information, I collected so much information for this presentation, I squashed everyone on, but there's lots of acknowledgements there. A couple of other people that, helped me. I was asked to do this, so it gives me great pleasure to ask Professor Gill Hubbard to come up to the podium and give her lecture of Latin stuff.
We have to come and show you how to use this. Like, seriously. Maybe it's not this one. Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Annetta. I found that really interesting. So what am I doing? So I am here to talk to you all about the research, and if there's one thing that I've learned, and now I'm 53, so I'm thinking, what have I learned all my years, is that it's all about teamwork. And my A team are here with me, which is my family. Hello! They're all pretty guys. Husband, who, well, we've been together 28 years, married for 8, so he was on a long probation. I've got my mum and dad up. So they've come up from the Midlands, and they are my A team, and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them. But people that know me will know there's somebody missing from my family team, and so this is it. This is him earlier this year. So he keeps me sane when work becomes crazy, so that's Zappa. But obviously I've also got another team, and they're here today as well, which are my neighbours. And this is not a fashion accessory. This was actually won at the Cromarty Regatta rowing. We came second, the ladies' 50s. So if it wasn't for teamwork, we wouldn't have won that either. But of course, I'm here to talk about an important team, which is the work team. And so, lovely to see all my colleagues. And there are 2 people in particular that I'd like to thank, which is Julie in the audience. Hello. This is the picture of Julie, who was recently in the Daily Record. So sorry, Julie, the embarrassment time. This Julie, her daughter Bria, and any excuse to put Bria on show, and the brother-in-law. So Julie and I work really closely together, and if it wasn't for Julie, I certainly wouldn't be standing here today. She does all the work. I bring in the money, and she runs the project, and she is absolutely wonderful. But here, she is the poster girl of kidney transplants, because not only did she manage to run the project, she also managed to have a kidney transplant during that time, and have a baby. So how this woman does it is beyond me, but she is personally inspirational, so thank you. And the other person I'm really pleased, who I also work with, is Jack. And Jack, more about him later, but Jack won the Young Person's Inspirational Award. Have I got that right, Jonathan?
Inspirational Young Person of the Year.
Inspirational Young Person of the Year. Now, Jack works with us on our son safety work. So, for me, teams are about the people you work with. And I have been so fortunate to have a wonderful A team, my family, but also to work with as well. So, thank you very much. But anyway, that wasn't what I was meant to be talking about at all. I'm meant to be talking about teenagers, and that's what I'm going to move on to. So some of you might not be the same age as me, but those of you who are will know exactly what that title is all about. So, my teenage, can you please put your hands up if you think you had were you a typical teenager? Now, I know the social scientists are going to want to go and disappear. So most of you think you were typical teenagers? Yeah? Annetta, you're I'm just looking over. Yes, you all think you were typical. Well, so did I. I thought I was a typical teenager. So I'm from Melton Mowbray, pork pie, Stilton cheese. That's what we're famous for, but not really, because did you know, when I was doing a little research, Melton Mowbray, Mum and Dad, happens to be, it says, to quote in The Independent, no less, the home of the pork pie is hiding a dark secret. Despite its rural charm and world-famous food, Melton has been revealed to be the unluckiest place to live in England. And this is, apparently Melton has the highest rate of accidental deaths, 29 per 100,000 people, compared to the lowest rate in Surrey, with 5.5 deaths. And Melton also has the most number of years of life lost annually. So that's where I was brought up. Who would have known? But this is what the Conservative councillor said in response to that report. He said, nothing much really goes on here, apart from pork pies and Stilton cheese. It's very much a sparsely populated area, which does have some agriculture, which I suppose does tend to have a high number of workplace accidents. So that's where I was brought up. And this is a picture, I'm not in this, this is a picture of our sixth form. And we used to go back home to my house and drink alcohol, effectively, sometimes. When we were celebrating birthdays, and then all trundled back to school. And this is us in our front garden, and who knows where we all ended up. But yes, literally, I did drink alcohol. This is a picture of me when I was the first year at university. And am I a typical teenager? So how did alcohol feature? As a teenager, quite sadly, 70% of 15-year-olds who have tried alcohol have been drunk at least once, and 20% of 15-year-olds report being drunk more than 10 times. So if you were like me and did drink alcohol, then you were quite typical. I'm not saying it's a good thing, I'm just saying it's a common thing that happens to people. So that was me as a teenager. I also, sorry Ian, I did have a boyfriend before you. He did, we liked riding motorbikes. But the scary thing, and my mum will probably remember this, is a lot of people die on the roads. And unfortunately, I lost 3 friends in motorbike accidents. One was one of my best friends, Lena. And that, again, is not an atypical experience for a teenager. And in rural areas, road accidents are very, very common, or more common than in urban areas for young people. So the second leading cause of death among young people is transport accidents. You'll know that the first leading cause of death is self-harm, and some of that is of dying from suicide. So my experience of having young friends dying was not particularly untypical. So this is a picture of me and my dad. You might remember that, Dad. We did go on our holidays every year to the seaside, and that's me with a little bit of sunburn. So this is the study that we did in Scotland, where we found that 51% of young people reported experiencing sunburn the previous summer, and of whom 38% said they got sunburn on more than one occasion. Now, the reason why that's a problem is that if you get sunburned, you're more likely to end up with skin cancer when you're older. So if you've been burnt 5 or more times as a teenager, then your risk of getting skin cancer later goes up. So that's a bit of a worry. So that was the research that I did with Richard Giles, some of you will know, who again was part of a research team and a wonderful person and colleague to work with. So let's talk about teenagers, which is, as Crichton said, I started my career as a secondary school teacher and has always been interested in teenagers. And they were, in fact, invented. We never had teenagers, really. The term teenager, it didn't come about until the Second World War, effectively. And this is what, this was in Life magazine in 1944. They said that teenagers, it's a world of sweaters and skirts and bobby socks and loafers, of hair worn long and of eyeglass rims painted red with nail polish, of high school boys not yet gone to war. So that's the teenagers then. So what are our teenagers like? Well, this is a picture of one of my nieces. I happen to have tons of nieces. My husband's from a family of 10, so you can imagine there's loads of them. This is actually my brother's daughter, and you literally have to surround her by puppies so that she's not on her mobile phone or her computer. This is literally what you have to do, is put puppies on her. And this is what this was from one of the teenagers again in The Independent, that said, the problem with being a teenager is that nothing is ever solid. For a 15-year-old, she said she's unusually, she's just said it's a pain in the arse being, sorry that's a swear word in Norwegian, it's a pain in the arse. She said, 1 minute we're up and then we're down. 1 minute I want to shout the house down, the next I feel so happy that I just want to hug everyone in the room at once, you know. So that's what teenagers are like, and those of you that have a teenager will probably know what this slide is all about. So this was the teenage brain. Teenagers, we're now getting more and more understanding of what teenagers are like. They're not lazy, they do need their sleep, because physiologically they are quite different. They are growing psychologically, socially, and also obviously physiologically. So they are a fascinating group to work with. Those of you that do work with them, I find them really great fun. So when I got asked to work with Teenage Cancer Trust, I was approached by them to evaluate they go into schools, secondary schools, and deliver a cancer awareness intervention. And so we've done some work with them now going on 8 or so years. And I've just seen Fiona in the audience, and it was her daughter actually that worked on the research study with Teenage Cancer Trust. So she's another great person to have in your team. I know she can't make it today, but please pass on my regards to her. So what were the key findings from some of the research that we've done around sun safety? So 51% of young people reported getting sunburn the previous summer. 38% of these young people indicated that they had sunburn on more than one occasion, and 42% said that their friends liked to tan skin. Now, skin cancer has gone up by 360% since the 1970s in the UK. So we do have a bit of a problem with this particular cancer. So these are the materials that you can download from Teenage Cancer Trust, and this is what Rebecca Skinner helped produce. and they are really, really good resources. And following from that, we've then worked with another organisation, Melanoma, and what we've been doing with them is we're in our second study now, and now Jonathan, who's in the audience, is now part of the research team, as well as Jack, who I showed you a picture of. And what we did is we developed an intervention where it's Jack and Sheena, who's the clinical nurse specialist. Sheena was Jack's nurse when Jack was diagnosed with skin cancer when he was 16, and he's now at university and he's on an internship with Macmillan, and they go into schools and effectively they give a 50-minute presentation and about skin cancer, and then we give the young people a homework assignment, which is basically teaching them how to examine their skin for signs of skin cancer, and also we try and encourage them to use sunscreen. And the research that we did is we got some schools that would deliver the intervention and some schools that didn't receive the intervention. And therefore what we did is we compared compared the results of the two schools. So the teenagers in the school that didn't get the intervention and the teenagers in the school that did, we compared the findings of our study. And what we found was, as a result of the intervention, that their intention to practice and use sunscreen actually went up, increased in the school that got the intervention, but actually decreased in the school that didn't get the intervention. So what that shows is that when you go into a school and talk with teenagers, then they do listen, and they are more likely to use sunscreen as a result. Also, we found that their intention to self-examine their skin on a regular basis also went up in the intervention schools, but decreased in the school that didn't get the intervention. So again, we can see that the messages are getting across to the young people. One thing that I think is really important is about the communication in families. As a result of the intervention, we know that it actually increased. So young people were more likely to go home and talk about skin cancer in the schools that got the intervention. It did go up slightly in the control school as well, and we think that's what we call a research effect, that they probably went and talked to their parents. So that's incredibly interesting to us as researchers, is that we can increase communication in families. And as we know, if you've got increased communication in families about cancer, you're more likely to get diagnosed early, and that's important because if you're diagnosed early, your treatment is less severe and your chances of surviving the disease also increases. For those of you that want to see the logic behind it, this is it's a very full slide, but we're researchers. We don't like to give you one word. If we can give you 1,000, we certainly will. So this is what the SunSafe work does. So we have an intervention, and as I said, it's a presentation. There's homework, and then this particular study we're doing is we're also sending young people text messages over the school holidays. We expect that the messages that we're sending and the presentation is based on some theory, some psychological theory about what motivates young people to change their behaviours. And that's all about trying to change, for example, their perception of their risk of cancer. If we can change that, then you're likely to get their behaviour also changing. We give them messages about how they protect themselves in the sun. We also know that if you make a plan to do something, you're more likely to end up doing it. And then the outcomes that we're trying to change with this particular study is reduce sunburn rates, and in the long term reduce skin cancer rates. So that's the study that we've been doing. Do I think teenagers are worth all the effort? I certainly do. They are an underrepresented group in research. There's quite a lot on children, and then there's sort of like this gap, and then there's a lot on adults. And Jo's here, who's also doing her research on adolescents. I don't know whether other people are also doing research with this age group, but they are an incredibly important group. They're a fun group to work with, and I've had a real, really interesting time researching them, and I would recommend that if you are interested, then do so. I don't know what Jonathan's thoughts are since he's been doing work in schools, but they're a good, they're very willing to learn, and I've been really pleased that our research has been able to make a difference. So I'm going to end just by playing, if I can, playing The Who, which was what the title for those of you are all about. If you're not of this age, you won't appreciate this. I'm not expecting it to go on forever. Feel free whenever whoever's on next to turn it off, but this is just for my entertainment, probably, those of you that aren't into it, but it looks like it's not going to play. What a shame. I'm sorry, Graham.
Annetta and Jill. My name is Sandra McCreary. I'm Head of Rural Health and Wellbeing at University of Highlands and Islands in the Institute of Health Research and Innovation and Chair of Clinical Diabetes. So I'm just going to share this next short session. And the first thing is get an opportunity to ask some questions of our two speakers. So I'm opening questions up to the room. And we've still got people on VC.
Yeah, we're still here, Sandra.
You're still here, oh, that's good. Okay, so we can't see you, so you're going to have to shout it out if you want to ask a question. Because normally they ask you to put your hand up or wave frantically. So
We can shout.
we can shout. Okay. Jill and Annetta, would you like to join me to answer some questions for a few minutes? If that's all right.
Oh, there.
I'm going to kick it off. Annetta, just ask me a question a little bit about the history of nursing. You talked about the Highlands and Islands College from 1970 to 1996. As somebody who's lived and worked in Glasgow, I saw the wards of Glasgow Hospital littered with young people from Highlands and Islands exported to work in these hospitals. Do you think that change is morphing now? We're seeing more people who are actually staying at home and choosing to go to colleges in the north now, do you think?
I think we've exported from the Highlands and Islands a lot of nurses down to the central belt and beyond, and I suppose it's good in a way because it gives people a choice, and a lot of them will come back and work with us. So I think that particularly with the University of the Highlands and Islands, I think it probably centralises us and makes people realise that we are here. It was good working with Stirling, but the population still thought they had to go to Stirling to get into the cities. So I think being with the Highlands and Islands will be different to that. We are
Hi. Great talk, both of you. Jill, can I ask you a question about when you're working with behaviour change of lifestyle and when you're comparing maybe teenagers with adults, are there different predictors and determinants that are more predominant in that group compared to other adults that you tend to find?
Yeah. So I would say there are teenagers are different, and you would want to have a different intervention for that age group. So yeah, definitely, you do have to tailor it. I think anyone that works with teenagers, that would resonate, that they are different. Joe's nodding. Yeah, so I would tailor your interventions for the different age groups for sure. But you knew that already, Anna. She's one of my work colleagues.
there's quite a lot in the press at the moment around NHS. Quite a lot of mixed messages around pay awards, but also some negative things out there about, NHS is world leading, those days are past. So young people are getting quite a mixed message, I think, about careers in healthcare at the minute. But we're looking forward to an ageing population and greater demands in health and social care areas, and it should be an employment growth area. How do we encourage, both through education and through general health awareness in young people, to actually encourage them to think about careers in health?
I think a lot of it is about educating the general public so they know what a career in health means. Because even if you want to be a nurse, there's a lot of nurses in this room, and we all have come from different places and have done different things, and have morphed into a department, but we've all got different skills and strengths, and it's just alerting people to all the possibilities that healthcare has for them. And we think it's a great career, but we're not blind to some of the challenges of working in the NHS. I think it's about presenting a very positive message about where that can take you.
I have a question for both of you. How do we speak to teenagers to address the gender imbalance in nursing recruitment?
I'm actually tempted to ask my sister is sitting in front of you and is a secondary school teacher. Is that true?
It wasn't me
Sorry.
Yeah. But again, I think it's exactly what you're saying, Annette, about talking about the different career paths there are within healthcare and within nursing, and alerting school leavers to that when they're making their career choices, because obviously they have a range of different skills and qualities now. But again, it's about making the different career paths known to young people.
She doesn't always agree with me.
I am tonight.
Thanks very much for your lectures. I really enjoyed it. So well done. Great to hear your perspectives. My question is about the relationship between nursing, midwifery, and education in terms of research, particularly. As you know, we're rapidly developing our education portfolio in the university. We're rapidly developing, through your work, nursing and midwifery. Have you got any thoughts about how these things connect in terms of the research agenda and whether there's any discussions going on just now?
We as a department, we see that you can't have a department of nursing without the three things coming together. So you can't be a successful department of nursing unless you do research, undergraduate nursing and postgraduate nursing education. So if one falls, then it all starts to unravel.
So what I was thinking more was the discipline of education, teacher education, all the work that we do in that area.
In terms of connecting what we're doing with what you're doing, I think there is. We do have staff that are Shell, Paddy, that are doing a lot of work around educational research, and I think there are very clear opportunities there for us to connect and learn from each other as well.
Imran, have you got anything that you want to answer so that make sure we include you?
No, nothing for here. We're just enthralled.
Well said, Michael.
Yeah.
Jill, just thinking in terms of, young people, and talked about the perception of risk as a kind of motivation things for them. Are there other sort of motivators that you're coming up against? I know that in some of my clinical work, some of the stuff that gets young people into competition and games and things will actually sort of, they end up competing against each other, competing against other people. Is there kind of a feel for that within some of what you're doing, or is that more removed into other things?
No, I think well, I mean, all the behavioural theories, I mean, they sort of, some researchers have favourite theories or favourite models that they use, but the NICE guidelines, when their behaviour change guidelines, have basically said, you know what, we can't say definitively this theory is the best one to use. So I tend to not get too hung up, and I think there'll be a lot of different things will work, and probably we need to get better at sort of doing more individualised approaches rather than this blanket approach. As we know, that doesn't particularly work in education, so we know that, I mean, I'm rattling my brains to going back to when I did my PhD, which was all about theories of learning. You have young people learn very differently. Some like to have a discussion, some like to go away and think before they enter a discussion. And we know that in teamwork as well, that when we're working together, some people will be more chatty and want to discuss, and others will be quiet. So you have to sort of fit it with different people, which is life's rich. We're all different, and yeah.
Would either of you like to comment on just some of the international collaboration that you have, and looking forward opportunities in relation to that?
Well, I'd like to start off because Crichton made reference to the work that I've been involved in India, but that was very much, and it's been very much spearheaded by my colleague Leah in the audience. And as you know, we're working on, there's a number of projects actually. I think you're working on one as well. So there's a number of opportunities that have opened up, and I think you're working on one as well, Hugo, that have opened up. And I think getting that global perspective on some of the intractable problems like diseases, NCDs, and what we learn globally, there's lots of lessons that we can then take that locally. So they're absolutely crucial. It's so important to outward. And I learned, I was very privileged, and I spent a number of weeks in India, and I was over there and I was doing some teaching and lecturing, but I learned far more than anyone learned off me the whole time I was there, that's for sure. So, and you can take that back with you into your teaching and your research.
I was just interested how you would use both of you, your new titles to develop the department. So what's the added value? You both already bring an incredible amount of value to the department, but what specifically does this title give you or give our department?
I can answer some of it, but not all of it. I can answer bits of it. I think it's an outward recognition that we have an academic department, and I'm very much conscious that I'm representing our department, and I think since I've actually been given the title, I've been asked to consider representation on national groups in terms of nurse research, and it's great to have that foot in the door, if you like. It's very good for the department.
I'd agree. I think it helps the recognition for the department. So I think it's part of what Quentin was saying about how we're trying to just keep building. It has been a tough year for all of us because we've hit the ground running and literally hit the ground running with the midwifery, with Wendy. I mean, it's been quite a journey already, and I think having the titles of two professors in the department is just, I think, recognition that these guys are being business. This department's going to be contributing to what UHI is setting out. I think it's lovely to have your professorship from UHI. I felt very, we've been here 8 years now in the Highlands and met some wonderful people, neighbours. But it's a very nice, it's a nice place. There's a real commitment, and that's what really stood out for me. Is everybody that works here is very passionate about the people and the place, and I've not really felt that as much in other places where I've worked. There's a real commitment, and I think the people in Western Islands would probably, they probably feel the same. There's something about wanting to do what's best for people here, and therefore I think that's what we'll keep doing together as a team. And I expect to see more people getting their professorships and chairs. Yeah, so we're just a start. We're paving the way, Michelle. We'll do the rest of you.
I'd just like to say I'm a new member to the department. I've really enjoyed joining the team, and I thoroughly enjoyed hearing your talks this evening. I feel quite inspired, and you're very approachable, and that's lovely for me. If I've got any small thoughts of projects and things, it's really nice to be able to approach people with such wealth of experience and knowledge. It can help me to grow and to benefit the people that I would really focus on. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you very much.
I was just going to make a suggestion, if I might be so impertinent, so that it seems to me that the skills that you've demonstrated and the knowledge in the background is absolutely interdigitated in the sense that we've discussed the recruitment issues, and we have a great understanding of that and the rural healthcare, of course. But Jill also brings something about influencing. And it goes back to an earlier question, really. How do we influence these kids to consider a career in healthcare? And obviously we're a lot of thought into that, but I just wondered if you have anything to add to that. It just seemed to me a real opportunity for having the two of you working together.
I think we need to start earlier than we are. I think that's absolutely key. I mean, we have a habit of going to careers connections and open day schools, and it's generally the 5th and 6th years you're speaking to, which is a great opportunity. But I think we need to be in the schools earlier, maybe in primary as well, and also not just exposing the pupils to us, which our students are far better ambassadors for what they do than we are mainly. So I think we need to think about be a bit more strategic and long term how we engage with our young population.
Annetta, I wonder if there might be opportunities as well from the NHS point of view to be able to support that as well. So, thinking about old codgers like myself, there's no point in showing pupils me, but some of our newly qualified nurses would be great examples as well to take on.
I mean, we have taken our newly qualified nurses into the schools, and our students, and they've been fantastic ambassadors. So it's great because when you take them in, you don't have to say anything; they just do all the work. So,
couple of things quickly. Okay, Antonio, you go first.
I was just going to ask about potential opportunity with the STEM Hub, because obviously the STEM Hub is well set up at UHI, and they have connections with the schools all around, and they go from primary school and secondary school. I don't know if you have any connections with them, or whether people go into schools from the nursing department with them.
I don't think so.
No,
it's
one
one
of
of
the
the
things.
things.
Can I just say, we're in the process of doing two things. One was very spoken to Samantha and Mary about getting involved in STEM work, and that's starting from primary school upwards. And secondly, following on from the previous question, we're also in the process of trying to start up a school-wide public engagement group. And that's not just public engagement and research, it's public engagement in education and research. So that's something that is being set up at the moment, and that again will focus on the whole sort of age remit where we can engage and then involve people so starting from primary schools. So we're on that at the moment.
We're on it.
Sorry, Annetta, my question was actually, it was a specific question from one of your slides. That newspaper from the Stornoway Gazette trying to recruit nurses.
Yeah.
How attractive an offer was that at the time?
For monetary terms, it was quite significant.
So part of this is about making it an attractive offer.
Yeah.
And that may not be monetary, that may be the whole landscape of healthcare.
Yeah.
I think one of the I was going to say, I think one of the things about monetary is, the coming as newly qualified staff nurses with a really healthy salary starting off, £25,000. There's not many graduates actually come out, for those kind of salaries and have those, career opportunities to progress even further. And I think it's that whole package needs to be out there informing the general public, as part of that whole remit.
I was going to say as well, it would have been significant compared to the average salary in Lewis at the time.
Which is quite interesting.
Maybe compared to the average salary in Lewis at the moment.
Salary is much more in the military than it is in the NHS as well.
Okay, are there any last questions? No? We should then just sort of say the last word to Michael. Michael.
Thanks very much, Sandra. I know this is a kind of a slight breach in protocol, but I was going to just say a couple of things about Annetta, because we're back in the homeland here and she's over in Inverness. So I just wanted to say I've known Annetta since 1992 in various guises, first as a student nurse, then as a clinician, and then as a clinician that sometimes come in to fill gaps and teach students, and then as a colleague, a very well respected colleague, I'd have to say, Annetta. I think thanks very much for the presentation. It was really interesting, and it was very interesting taking that trip down memory lane and the horror that was brought back, looking at the entrance to the old prefab, the old nursing education department, which was really good. But I've just got a couple of things to say. I think it's important for us to realise and just let everybody in the audience know that Annetta's been an absolute stalwart in nurse education, certainly from here, from the Western Isles and the Hebrides, for I've just put question mark years, I won't fill in that gap, for a very long time. And in actual fact, some of the distinguished guests, they may have been over here as part of their duties of coming over to teach some of the students, and they may know about what we call Rogues Gallery in the corridor here. Now, Rogues Gallery is actually a whole series of photographs, all of the nurses that have trained here, and that number's not insignificant. But one of the things I was thinking about was Annetta talked about the timeline in terms of the evolution of nursing. You can actually see the evolution of nursing as well through hairstyles. If you're ever over, there's one person in every single photograph. and I'd have to say the hairstyle's not the same. Sorry. On a more kind of serious note, though, I think the education of nurses in the Western Isles and the Hebrides and that long tradition that Annetta talked about and Catherine here will testify to as well, has really kind of carried on, and we do have has been responsible for, you know, the education and the kind of impact globally for some of our students actually start here and end up in places like Thailand, New Zealand, Australia, Europe, America, and that's just one of them. So we do have quite a global outreach, and I think Annetta's been quite really a real stalwart in terms of making that happen. And I think it's all been done through, it's been accomplished through a lot of hard work, a lot of determination, and no insignificant and insurmountable challenges, it's got to be said, and we'll leave it at that. So I'd just like to finish off by saying we're very proud of you. Congratulations, Annetta. The Hebrides are proud, and so's the motherland, so well done. And we love you too, Jill.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you. Well, I think that's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you. Very sincere thanks to Professor Smith and Hubbard, and to all the audience here who've come to support them, and for all your interesting, stimulating questions, and for our team here in the Western Isles. It's a unique privilege to be here. I've done 2 lectures at once, so it's a great double the value, 2 for the price of 1. But fascinating journey that you're both actually taking us on. And what you've shown is the use of education and research, and how that's informed and integrated into your practice, and how that's bringing things forward for all of us. And I think what we're going to benefit from is this tremendous history that you're bringing with you, with the School of Nursing, as it integrates since last year into the University of Highlands and Islands. And we're going to benefit from all the talents and all the work that you've done before, and actually what you're bringing with you. So it's fascinating work, and a real privilege to actually be part of that. Just a couple of reminiscent points. I think in terms of what you were talking about, Annetta, we talked about the geography of the Highlands and how the barriers to healthcare are important, and how we can deliver healthcare. But actually, the history is very important. The history informs where we get to, and a lot of what you were talking about resonates with many people in this room who've worked in clinical services in the Highlands and Islands. And it's really interesting the way you brought it back round to the wheel turning, because of course we've got NHS 2020 vision, and everything's got back into the community and maintaining people in community settings and all the rest of it, away from the big hospitals and closing wards and reducing numbers, etc. Things like that. And it's nice to see some of the old pictures as well. Some of the old buildings still here, Rigmore, those who worked in the Rigmore site, some of the old red brick buildings are still there from the War Hospital. And when I moved into diabetes here, we were given one of those buildings as the diabetes centre, and the plaque on the wall said Wooden Eye Clinic. So you don't have to clinician to understand that Wooden Eye is probably not something you'd actually want in your own socket. So I'm getting it mixed up with legs and artificial eyes and things. We were given one of those buildings to actually start the diabetes service, and I believe it had been nursing home before that as well. Actually, it had many guys in that building, and it's still going. I think the prisoners actually using it for some of their classes and things. So fascinating to just think about where we've come to and how we're forging ahead, and really about the contribution that nurses make to healthcare and to the roles that people are taking on. It's gone well beyond the original description of what a nurse might do, and very much part of the teamwork. And I think Jim spoke of that as well, and I think the team is essential to everything we do. It really is, whether it's research, it's education, it's healthcare, etc. It's about building strong teams that can take things forward, and that the numbers go well beyond the contributions of each individual. We can achieve so much more with the team. And it's fascinating to look at the groups that you're working with, because working with young people to get things right is the way to change their behaviour, but to change future generations as well, because the more we educate them, the more it goes forward. particularly interested in thinking about your melanoma research and sunscreens and things. I've got a really good tip for you though. So with the Celtic skins, you want Saint-Tropez and it's 15 in it. And then today you got in red, so you did an RCT on that, sort of fake tan versus real tan, and see what happens in terms of changing people's behaviour. So we're coming to the end of our proceedings, and I would like to say more tangerish to Annetta and Gill, and I would like to invite Professor Megson now to welcome Professor Smith and Hubbard to the Professorial at the University of the Highlands and Islands.
I'm not going to lie, this is the part of the proceedings that terrified me the most when I saw the schedule come out. The reason for that is threefold. Firstly, I realise I stand between you and your chicken stroganoff. Perhaps all the people in Swanaway there haven't quite got to teleportation yet, but secondly, I saw that I had 15 minutes to welcome you to the Professorial. And thirdly, I didn't know what a Professorial was. It sounds like some sort of throwback to the Eastern Bloc or something. So I looked it up, and it is the collective term for professors. You might be surprised to hear. Whereas I always thought that the collective term for professors was actually a confusion. I really won't take 15 minutes, but I would like to take this opportunity to add my sincere welcome to Annetta and to Gill. These two individuals are thoroughly deserving of the title Professor, and as Crichton said earlier, it's really important that we choose the right people to lead the university and to provide this accolade to those individuals. It's also a momentous occasion for the university, and the reason for that is that, of course, this actually welcomes nursing into the university, which is a vital aspect of our teaching and research related to health. So, without further ado, if I could just invite Gill up to accept a gift and to welcome. Brings the proceedings to a close. There is now some food served downstairs, I believe, and a little wine for those who are not riding home. So thank you very much indeed for your attendance, and welcome to the Professorial.